There are places in this world that seem ordinary during the day: a street, a building, a road, a house. But when the sun disappears and the darkness takes over, some places reveal a side that was never meant to be seen. Tonight, you are about to hear three terrifying stories about places that should not exist, places where people entered and never came back the same, places where reality itself seems to break. The first story begins with a house that appeared in the middle of nowhere, and a man who discovered that some doors are better left unopened. My name is Daniel, and I never believed in haunted places. I always thought those stories were just things people created to scare others. Old houses with ghosts, abandoned buildings with dark secrets, places where strange things happen for no reason. I believed there was always an explanation until the night I found the house. It happened during a long drive home through a rural area far away from the city. I had taken that road many times before, but that night was different. The weather was terrible. A thick fog covered everything around me, making it almost impossible to see more than a few meters ahead. The road was empty. No cars, no lights, no houses. Just endless trees surrounding both sides of the road. My phone had lost signal hours earlier and my GPS stopped working. I remember looking at the fuel meter and realizing I was running low. I started feeling nervous because I had no idea where I was. Then, through the fog, I saw something that shouldn't have been there. A light. A warm yellow light shining between the trees. At first, I thought it was another car or maybe a small cabin. But as I got closer, I saw a house. A large old house standing alone in the middle of the forest. I was confused because I had driven this road before, many times, and I had never seen any house there. But at that moment, I didn't care. I needed help. I parked my car near the entrance and walked toward the front door. The house looked abandoned. The paint was peeling. The windows were covered in dust. The garden was completely dead. But one thing bothered me. The lights inside were on. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then, just as I was about to leave, the door slowly opened by itself. I stood there for a few seconds, staring inside. Every part of me wanted to walk away. But the storm was getting worse. I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not normal silence. A strange silence. The kind where you feel like something is listening to you. The entrance hall was covered with old furniture. There were paintings on the walls, family pictures. Hundreds of them. I looked closer. The pictures showed the same house. But the people in the pictures were different. Different years, different families, different faces. It was like the house had belonged to many people throughout history. I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed through the hallway. No answer. Then I heard something upstairs. A sound, like someone walking. Slow footsteps. One step, then another. I thought someone was living there. Maybe an old person. Maybe someone who could help me. I walked up the stairs. Each step made a loud noise under my feet. When I reached the second floor, I saw a long hallway with several doors. At the end of the hallway was a mirror. A large, old mirror. I looked at myself, and for a moment, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. I turned around quickly. Nobody was there. I laughed nervously and told myself I was just tired. Then I noticed something strange. The reflection in the mirror was delayed. I moved my hand. My reflection moved a second later. I stepped backward. The reflection didn't. It just stood there, looking at me. I ran away from the mirror and entered the closest room. Inside was a bedroom. On the bed was an old photo album. I opened it. The first page showed the house. The second page showed a family, a man, a woman, and a child. I turned the page. Another family. Then another. Then another. Every picture had the same thing, the house, and every family looked scared, as if they were trapped. Then I reached the final page. My hands started shaking, because the final picture was not old. It was new. It was a picture of me, standing outside the house, taken only a few minutes ago. I dropped the album. There was no possible way. Nobody was outside. Nobody could have taken that picture. Then I heard a voice behind me. A whisper. "You finally came back." I froze. I slowly turned around. An old man was standing in the doorway. I had never seen him before, but he looked at me like he knew me. "Who are you?" I asked. The old man smiled. "You don't remember?" I stepped away. "Remember what?" He looked toward the photograph on the floor. "You were here before." I felt my heart beating faster. "I have never been here." The old man shook his head. Everyone says that at first. Then he walked toward the hallway. I followed him without knowing why. He stopped in front of the mirror. The house doesn't appear to everyone, he said. It appears to people who are looking for a way out. I didn't understand. Then I noticed something in the mirror. The old man wasn't standing beside me. He was standing behind me. But in reality, there was nobody there. I turned around. The hallway was empty. I looked back at the mirror, and the old man was gone. But my reflection was still there. Except it wasn't copying me anymore. My reflection was smiling. I ran. I don't remember how I got outside. I don't remember leaving the house. I only remember waking up inside my car the next morning. The storm was gone. The fog disappeared, and there was no house, only trees. I drove back to the nearest town and asked people about the place. Nobody knew what I was talking about. I showed them the road. They told me there was nothing there. No house, no building, nothing. But one old man at a gas station looked at me strangely. He asked me one question. Did the house let you leave? I didn't answer, because I already knew the truth. The house was never lost. It was never hidden. It was waiting. And even now, sometimes when I drive at night, I see a light between the trees, a warm yellow light. And I know the house is waiting for someone else to open the door. The second story begins on a road that many people refuse to drive on after sunset. A road surrounded by endless trees. A road where people claimed they heard voices calling their names from the darkness. But one driver believed there was always a logical explanation. Until the night, he picked up a passenger who was not supposed to exist. My name is Michael, and I have been driving for almost 10 years. I have seen strange things on the road. People acting strangely. Places that looked abandoned. Cars stopping in the middle of nowhere. But I never believed in ghosts. I was the kind of person who always searched for a normal explanation. If someone said they saw something impossible, I believed they were tired. If someone talked about haunted places, I thought they were imagining things. That changed during one rainy night in November. I was working as a taxi driver in a small town far away from the city. It was almost midnight, and I was finishing my last trip before going home. The roads were nearly empty, the rain was falling heavily, and the streetlights were disappearing one by one as I drove toward the countryside. I remember thinking how strange the area looked. Everything was dark. No houses, no stores, no people, only a long road cutting through the forest. Then I saw someone standing beside the road. At first, I thought it was impossible. Nobody would stand there in that weather. But as I got closer, I saw a man. He was wearing a long black coat. He was completely still, just standing there. Watching my car approach, I slowed down. Something inside me told me not to stop. But I was a taxi driver. Helping people was my job. I pulled over. The man opened the back door and got inside. He didn't say hello. He didn't look at me. He just sat quietly. After a few seconds, I asked, "Where are you going?" The man slowly gave me an address. I recognized the place immediately. An old house at the end of a road called Blackwood Lane. Almost nobody lived there anymore. I had heard rumors about that house. People said a family disappeared there many years ago, but I didn't believe those stories. I started driving. For the first few minutes, everything was normal. The passenger stayed silent. The only sounds were the rain hitting the windows and the engine of the car. Then I looked at the mirror, and I noticed something strange. I couldn't see his face. The back seat was clearly visible. His body was there, his coat, his hands, everything, but his face was always hidden in darkness. I adjusted the mirror. Still nothing. I thought maybe the lighting was bad. I continued driving. After a while, the man suddenly spoke. "You shouldn't take this road." His voice was quiet, almost like he was whispering. I looked at him through the mirror. "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Because this road doesn't always take people where they want to go." I laughed nervously. I thought he was trying to scare me. "Are you always this mysterious with taxi drivers?" He didn't respond. A few minutes later, my GPS suddenly turned on by itself. The screen showed something strange. The destination was not the address he gave me. It showed my own house. I touched the screen and tried to fix it, but it wouldn't change. Then the passenger said, "Don't look at the GPS." I froze. "How did you know what it says?" Silence. I looked in the mirror again. This time I saw something that made my hands tighten around the steering wheel. The back seat was empty. The man was gone. I immediately stopped the car. I turned around. Nobody. The doors were locked. The windows were closed. There was no possible way he could have left. I got out of the car and searched around. The road was empty. The rain was still falling. There were no footprints. Nothing. Then I heard a sound, a voice, coming from the forest. My name. Michael. I stopped moving. The voice came again. Michael. It sounded exactly like the passenger. I got back into the car and drove away as fast as I could. I didn't care about the destination anymore. I just wanted to leave that place. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just exhaustion. Maybe I imagined everything. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the stress was affecting me. But then I noticed something. The back seat of my taxi was wet. There was a dark mark on the seat, like someone had been sitting there for hours. I went to the address the passenger gave me. I wanted answers. The house was real. An old abandoned house surrounded by broken trees. I knocked on the door. An elderly woman from the neighboring house came outside. She looked at me strangely. "Why are you here?" I told her about the passenger, the man in the black coat, the address, the ride. Her face changed immediately. She became pale. "What did he look like?" I hesitated. "I don't know." The woman stared at me, because nobody knows. I didn't understand. She explained that many years ago, a man named Thomas lived in that house. One night, he disappeared while walking home. The police searched everywhere. They never found him. But after his disappearance, people started seeing him on the road. Always during storms. Always asking drivers to take him home. I felt my stomach drop. "That's impossible." The woman looked at my car. Then she said, "Did he tell you not to take the road?" I couldn't answer, because he did. She looked away. "Everyone who picks him up hears the same thing." I asked, "What happens to the drivers?" She stayed silent for a moment, then she said, "Most of them never come back." I left immediately. I never drove that road again. I quit my job as a taxi driver a few months later. I thought everything was over, until one night, I received a message from an unknown number. It only contained one picture, a picture of my taxi, taken from the back seat. I stared at it. My car was empty, except for one thing. On the window was written, "Thank you for taking me home." I changed my phone number. I moved to another city. I tried to forget everything. But sometimes when I drive at night, especially when it rains, I look in the rearview mirror, and for a split second, I see a man sitting in the back seat, wearing a black coat, waiting for me to ask one question. "Where are you going?" The third story is about a place that was never supposed to exist, a place hidden inside a building, a place that appeared only for a few seconds, a place where people discovered something terrifying. Because sometimes the most dangerous things are not hidden in abandoned houses or dark forests. Sometimes they are waiting somewhere we enter every single day. This is the story of the elevator that stopped on a floor that didn't exist. My name is Ethan, and I used to work as a security guard in an old office building downtown. The building was nothing special. It was just another tall concrete structure surrounded by hundreds of others. Thousands of people entered it every day. Employees, visitors, cleaning workers. Nobody thought there was anything strange about it. But the building had one secret. A secret that nobody talked about. The elevator. The building had 12 floors. Everyone knew that. The buttons inside the elevator went from 1 to 12. There was no 13th floor, no hidden offices, no extra rooms. At least, that's what everyone believed. I started working the night shift because I preferred quiet places. During the day, the building was full of noise. Phones ringing, people talking, doors opening and closing. But at night, everything changed. The empty hallways, the dim lights, the sound of footsteps when nobody was there. It was peaceful. Until my third month working there. That was the night I saw something impossible. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I was sitting at the security desk watching the cameras. The building was completely empty. Then one of the cameras caught something strange. The elevator on the first floor opened. Nobody entered. Nobody left. But the elevator doors stayed open. I thought it was a technical problem. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward it. When I arrived, the doors were still open. The inside lights were flickering. I pressed the button for the ground floor. Nothing happened. Then suddenly, the doors closed. The elevator started moving. I looked at the numbers above the door. Second floor, third floor, fourth floor. It stopped. I waited. The doors opened, but I was not on the fourth floor. I was looking at a hallway I had never seen before. The lights were old. The walls were damaged. The air smelled like dust and something rotten. I checked the elevator display. The number was impossible. 13. My first thought was that I was dreaming. The building didn't have a 13th floor. I quickly pressed the button to close the doors. But before they closed, I heard something, a voice, coming from the hallway. Wait! I froze. The voice sounded like someone asking for help. I should have ignored it. I should have closed the doors, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. I stepped outside. The elevator doors closed behind me. The hallway was completely silent. There were old office doors on both sides. Every door had a number. 13A, 13B, 13C. The building was supposed to be modern, but this place like it had been abandoned for decades. I walked slowly. Then I noticed something. There were pictures hanging on the walls. Pictures of the building. But they were old. Very old. One picture showed the building being constructed. Another showed workers standing outside. I moved closer. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the picture, standing among the workers, was me. I dropped the flashlight. I stared at the picture. It was impossible. I wasn't even born when that photo was taken. I backed away. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow footsteps. I turned around. A man was standing at the end of the hallway. He was wearing a security guard uniform. An old one. "Who are you?" I asked. The man didn't answer. He just looked at me. Then he said, "You shouldn't be here." I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. "What is this place?" The man looked around. "This is where everyone ends up." I didn't understand. "Everyone?" He nodded. "People who disappear inside the building." My heart started racing. "What are you talking about?" The man pointed toward the doors. "Look inside." I didn't want to, but I opened one of the doors. Inside was an office. There were desks, computers, papers. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. Every desk had a name tag, and every name belonged to someone who had disappeared from the building. People who were reported missing. People nobody ever found. I closed the door immediately. The man looked at me. "Now you understand." I stepped back. "I need to leave." He smiled sadly. "Everyone says that." Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. I heard movement around me, many footsteps, whispers, voices coming from every direction. Then someone whispered my name. "Ethan." I turned on my flashlight. The hallway was empty. The security guard was gone. But at the end of the hallway, the elevator doors were open. I ran toward them. I entered and pressed the button for the first floor. Nothing happened. The display changed. 13, 12, 11, 10. Then it stopped. The doors opened. I was back in the lobby. Everything looked normal. The clock showed 2:31 a.m. Only 1 minute had passed. I ran to the security desk. I checked the cameras. I wanted to prove I wasn't imagining things. But what I saw was worse. The camera showed me entering the elevator. Then it showed the elevator going to the 13th floor. Then, nothing. For 8 hours. The cameras showed the elevator doors closed, and me completely missing. But I was sitting at the security desk watching the footage. I quit the next day. I never went back. Years passed. I tried to forget about that night. Until last month. I received an envelope in the mail. No name, no address. Inside was a picture, an old picture of the building. The same picture I saw on the 13th floor. But this time, there was something different. Someone had added a new person to the picture. Me. Standing next to the old security guard, and written on the back of the photo were 6 words, "The elevator is waiting for you." I don't work there anymore. I don't go near that building. But sometimes, when I enter an elevator somewhere else, I look at the buttons and I always count them carefully. Because I know now some buildings have floors that are not meant to be found. And some doors should never open.